leaders sign Gaza ceasefire deal. Malaysia to ensure ASEAN summit delivers tangible impact. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. My name is Daryl Baptist and you're watching World Today. World leaders convened in Egypt as they sign a ceasefire deal in Gaza, led by United States President Donald Trump and mediating partners such as Egypt, Qatar and Turkey. Trump called it a tremendous day for the world and a tremendous day for the Middle East. Trump stated that the parties had signed a highly detailed document that outlined rules and regulations, as he commended the gathered leaders as the greatest.
A lot of rules and regulations. And I just want to tell you the people behind me and some of the people in the room that are so helpful, but the people behind me are the greatest leaders, most powerful leaders, the richest leaders, frankly. Sometimes it's not politically correct to say that, but I'll say it, the richest in the world that the world has ever seen. And yet when you get to know them, I know every one of them in their own way, and I can say in particular some, because that's the way life works, but some of the greatest people you'll ever meet, and people that really care for their countries. And why this happened is they all came together and they wanted to get Gaza straightened out. They wanted to get the whole thing straightened out. It got to a point where it was just crazy. We're going to be signing a document that's going to...
This is described as a first phase agreement between Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire and the release of captives by Hamas and prisoners and detainees by Israel. The ceasefire and partial Israeli withdrawal, agreed last week, halted one of Israel's biggest offenses of the war, an all-out assault on Gaza City that was killing scores of people per day. On a related note, Trump said that the Gaza ceasefire deal had opened the door to rebuilding. Under the deal, Hamas freed the last living Israeli hostages held in Gaza, while Israel released busloads of Palestinian detainees, marking the most significant step toward peace since the start of the war.
In one sense, it's so horrible that it could have taken place, but in another sense, it's so beautiful to see a new and beautiful day is rising, and now the rebuilding begins. The rebuilding is maybe going to be the easiest part. I think we've done a lot of the hardest part because the rest comes together. We all know how to rebuild, and we know how to build better than anybody in the world.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stated that the only way for Palestinians and Israelis to fulfill their aspirations and coexist peacefully is through a two-state solution. Sisi's statement came after he signed a document on the Gaza ceasefire deal with US President Donald Trump, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, and Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani.
وأعيد التأكيد على دعمنا وتطلعنا لتنفيذ هذه الخطة بما يخلق الأفق السياسي اللازم لتنفيذ حل دولتين باعتباره السبيل الوحيد نحو تحقيق الطموح المشروع للشعبين الفلسطيني والإسرائيلي في طي صفحة الصراع والعيش بأمان. لقد دشنت مصر.
Gazans collected clean water at a facility on Sunday after UNICEF rebuilt a desalination plant in Gaza City in efforts to restore clean water supply for residents. The desalination plant, backed by UNICEF and operated by the Palestinian Water Authority, was relocated to the south to shield it from intense bombing during the war. It resumed operations after reassembly, which took place before Monday's exchange of detainees as part of a ceasefire agreement.
The desalination plant, they took some of the equipment to the south when Gaza City was under heavy bombardment and there were evacuation orders. They were trying to protect it. But now, today, they're bringing it back to re-establish the plant and provide clean, safe drinking water to the people
UNICEF also stated it has more than 1,300 trucks prepared to deliver essential supplies, including water and sanitation items, into Gaza to address critical humanitarian needs. Now on to conflict between Russia and Ukraine. US President Donald Trump reiterated his belief that Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan could play a pivotal role in ending the conflict.
Erdogan can. He's respected by Russia. Ukraine I can't tell you about, but he is respected by Putin. And he's a friend of mine, you can see. Why I get along with the tough ones. I don't get along with the weak ones. I get along with the tough ones. I don't know what that is.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan's office stated that he spoke by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin last week and said diplomatic initiatives need to gain momentum to achieve a just and lasting peace in the Ukraine-Russia war. Turkey will continue to work for peace, bilateral relations, regional and global issues. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina has fled the country after sanctions of the army defected to join protesters. It marks the second government toppled by Gen Z-led protests in just over a month as youth-driven unrest spreads across several nations. Rajoelina's whereabouts remain unknown, though in a Facebook address he said he had moved to a safe location to protect his life, vowing not to let Madagascar be destroyed. Military sources told reporters Rajoelina departed on a French military aircraft on Sunday. Speaking in Egypt, French President Emmanuel Macron said he could not confirm the report, but urged that constitutional order be preserved while acknowledging the grievances of Madagascar's youth. Protests began on the 25th of September over water and power shortages before escalating into a nationwide movement denouncing corruption, poor governance and poverty. Home to about 30 million people, Madagascar remains one of the world's poorest nations, with 3/4 of its citizens living in poverty and GDP per capita down 45% since independence. Malaysia, as chair of the 47th ASEAN Summit next week, must ensure that every discussion produces tangible results and meaningful outcomes. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said Malaysia must also strengthen regional unity and ensure that the summit brings benefit to all ASEAN member states and dialogue partners. He said he has instructed the entire government machinery and relevant agencies to carry out the best preparations with utmost precision and commitment. Datuk Seri Anwar also expressed appreciation to all personnel who have worked tirelessly to ensure that all arrangements proceed smoothly. The 47th ASEAN Summit, themed Inclusion and Sustainability, will be held from October 26th to 28th at the Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre. The summit marks the culmination of Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship 2025 and is expected to draw more than 30,000 delegates, including ASEAN leaders, dialogue partners, and invited guests. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan emphasized that ASEAN member states will collectively decide the bloc's stance on Myanmar's plan to hold elections and its invitation for member countries to send election observers. He stressed that the matter could not be decided unilaterally.
Kita tidak akan memutuskan secara sendirian. Ini adalah ASEAN. Saya pergi kita tempoh hari itu sebagai ASEAN. Jadi perkara ini kita akan bawa ke mesyuarat Menteri-Menteri ASEAN dulu untuk kita putuskan, ya. Tetapi saya jangkakan ASEAN tidak akan bersetuju. Jadi not to be unduly worried.
He He was asked whether Malaysia would send an observer delegation to the upcoming election. On the 9th of October, Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan said that Myanmar must conduct its upcoming elections freely, fairly, transparently and credibly, with the participation of all political parties and stakeholders across the country. He conveyed the position during his working visit to Nay Pyi Taw, where he met with Chairman of the State Administration Council, or SAC, and Acting President Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, Prime Minister and Minister for National Planning U Nyo Saw, and Foreign Minister U Tan Swi. Next, WHO warns of contaminated Indian cough syrups. But before we go to that story, French President Emmanuel Macron has rejected calls to resign as his government faces 2 no-confidence motions that could topple it by the end of the week. Macron's government seems struggling to push through deficit-cutting budgets in a deeply divided parliament. Macron, who has gone through 5 prime ministers in under 2 years, remains firm in refusing to call fresh elections or step down. Speaking in Egypt, where he is attending talks on Gaza, Macron said he would continue to ensure continuity and stability until his term ends in 2027, accusing rivals of destabilizing France.
Donc le devoir de tous, c'est d'œuvrer à la stabilité. C'est pas de faire des paris sur l'instabilité. Donc moi je suis là dans mon rôle de garant de nos institutions, celui que j'ai exercé la semaine dernière. Comme toutes les Françaises et tous les Français, j'ai vu beaucoup de propos qui n'ont pas été à la hauteur des événements. Et je demande à tout le monde de se ressaisir, de travailler avec exigence, respect.
Over the weekend, Macron reappointed Sébastien Lecornu as Prime Minister days after his resignation. The new cabinet, unveiled on Sunday, kept most senior ministers despite promises of renewal. Both the France Unbowed Party and the National Rally Party filed no-confidence motions on Monday. Lecornu faces a crucial vote on Thursday, with his survival hanging on the socialists, who demand changes to Macron's pension reform and the introduction of a billionaire's tax. The government must also present its 2026 budget as France continues to battle the Eurozone's largest deficit. China has officially started collecting special port fees from US-owned, operated, built or flagged vessels on Tuesday. However, Chinese-built ships could be exempted from the levies. The details published by a state broadcaster clarify the specific provisions on exemptions, including for ships built by China, empty ships entering Chinese shipyards for repair, and other ships that are deemed exempt from payment. China's Transport Ministry announced last week that it would impose the new port fees as a countermeasure to US port fees on China-linked ships, starting the same day. Following the announcement, US President Donald Trump said he was raising tariffs on Chinese imports to 100% from the 1st of November. He is also imposing export controls on critical software in reprisal for China expanding its export limits on rare earth minerals. The special port fees will be collected at the first port of entry on a single voyage or for the first 5 voyages within the year. Failure to pay the fees will lead to stalled import and export procedures for the ship, the state media said. The World Health Organization, or WHO, has issued an urgent advisory after identifying 3 contaminated cough syrups in Indian linked to the deaths of several children. The affected products, Coldriff, Respifresh TR and Relif, were made by Srisan Pharmaceutical, Rednex Pharmaceuticals, and Shape Pharma. WHO said the syrups contain toxic substances that can cause severe, potentially fatal illness. India's drug regulator confirmed the medicines were consumed by at least 17 children under 5 who died last week. Authorities said the products were not exported. In Tamil Nadu, officials have revoked Srisan Pharmaceuticals' license and shut down its facilities after tests found the syrup contained nearly 500 times the legal limit of diethylene glycol. The country's enforcement directorate has launched money laundering investigations, raiding multiple premises, including homes of state drug-controlled officials. India, a key supplier of generic drugs worldwide, has faced scrutiny after similar cough syrup-linked deaths were reported in Cameroon, Gambia, and Uzbekistan in 2023.
MyCard bukan sekadar kad pengenalan, tetapi medium utama yang menghubungkan rakyat dengan pelbagai perkhidmatan kerajaan dan swasta. Banyak insentif kerajaan disalurkan melalui MyCard, daripada bantuan kebajikan, kemudahan kesihatan hinggalah pelbagai program rakyat. Inilah keistimewaan yang dimiliki oleh setiap warga negara Malaysia. Sila periksa keadaan MyCard anda. Sekiranya chip rosak, hilang atau MyCard sudah uzur, segera lakukan penggantian di Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara agar hak dan kemudahan anda sentiasa terjamin. Inilah komitmen madani. Dengan dokumen identiti yang sah, moden dan diyakini, rakyat disantuni sebaiknya. MyCard, identiti anda, kebanggaan negara.
Hello again, this is World Today. Ecuador on Monday reported 2 attacks that left 14 people dead and 17 wounded, with some of the victims showing signs of torture. The South American nation is a point of departure for cocaine shipments to the United States and Europe, and a hub for some 20 criminal groups involved in extortion and contract killings. The first attack occurred around 11 p.m. Sunday in Ecuador's largest city. As many as 7 people got off motorcycles and pickup trucks and fired shots at a neighborhood soccer game. The attack, which was attributed to the so-called Freddy Krueger gang, left 6 dead and 17 injured, including 3 minors who were at the sporting event. Police also reported finding 8 bodies in the town of Buena Fe. Local media said the group were part of a larger group of 12 who had traveled to the area from the capital, Quito. Ecuador recorded more than 4,600 homicides in the first half of the year, a 47% increase from the same period of 2024. Rescuers rushed to help those stranded by the terrible floods that have taken 64 lives in central and eastern Mexico, with another 65 people still unaccounted for. Torrential rains battered several Mexican states over several days last week, turning streets into rivers, triggering landslides, and sweeping away roads and bridges. Dozens of small communities remained inaccessible by road after the deluge, and residents worked tirelessly to clear paths for the delivery of food and other supplies. Around 10,000 troops have been deployed with boats, planes and helicopters as part of rescue efforts to deliver critical food and water for those trapped. Shelters have been opened for those displaced from their homes, and helicopters were flying to bring essentials to people. In eastern Mexico, search and rescue teams with trained sniffer dogs combed through mud and debris, looking for people still missing after torrential rains triggered devastating floods and landslides. Mexico has been hit by particularly heavy rains this year, including a record for the capital, Mexico City. New Jersey and parts of New York City were under a state of emergency on Monday as satellite images showed slow-moving nor'easter moving up the eastern U.S. seaboard, while in western Alaska, remnants of Typhoon Halong lashed coastal hamlets and ripped houses off their foundations. As the storm moved up the coast, all of New Jersey was placed under a state of emergency. The New York governor, Kathy Hochul, issued a similar declaration for 8 southern counties, urging people to monitor forecasts and avoid travel. The National Weather Service placed New York City, Long Island, and southern Westchester County under a coastal flood warning and wind advisory through at least Monday. The emergency declaration, which included the 5 boroughs of New York City and Westchester County, forced the cancellation of the annual Columbus Day Parade in Manhattan. Among the areas hardest hit were coastal areas of suburban Long Island, where up to 3 inches of rain and winds packing peak gusts of 45 to 50 miles per hour inland away from the shore and 55 to 60 miles per hour on the coast. Police in Nassau and Suffolk counties said they had received calls about downed tree limbs, but no reports of injuries or any significant road closures. Coming up, Harimau Malaya upbeat ahead of clash against Laos. Harimau Malaya are determined to deliver another commanding performance when they host Laos tonight in the Asian Cup qualifier at the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil. Peter Chklomovsky's men head into the clash buoyed by a 3-0 win in Vientiane during last week's Group F match, and the Australian coach believes his players are ready to build on that result in front of their home fans. Chklomovsky also said that Malaysia's attacking play, vibrant but sometimes wasteful, remains a key area for refinement.
We actually carried 1 or 2 bodies into camp that have, not been 100%, and they're also progressing. Hendricks, he's got a little concern that he brought in here. We brought him in here to look after him and get his rehab right. And there's 1 or 2 little bumps and bruises that we've done that. And why we do that is because we've got a world-class environment behind the scenes with our high-performance unit, with our medical team. And this is the best place for the players to continue to work hard to be at their best.
Meanwhile, national winger Faisal Halim has vowed that the national squad will stay united to bring glory for Malaysia despite the turmoil surrounding the Football Association of Malaysia, also known as FAM, following FIFA's sanctions. The 27-year-old said the players are determined to stay focused ahead of their match against Laos.
Kita sebagai pemain, kita kena teruskan kerja kita, apa yang sepatutnya kita kena lakukan. Sebagai pemain, kita berjuang untuk pasukan kebangsaan. Benda-benda yang bukan dalam kuasaan sebagai pemain, itu bukan adalah part kita. Kita beri tanggungjawab kita di atas padang. Itu pada pendapat saya.
Faisal's journey has been extraordinary since returning from his acid attack incident last year. The Selangor star was one of the scorers in Malaysia's 3-0 win against Laos last week. Faisal, who marked his return to scoring for Malaysia after a 623-day goal drought, also expressed his joy and gratitude for the chance to perform again at the highest level. On the other end, Laos head coach Ha Hyok-jun hopes his team can produce a better result when they face Malaysia in Bukit Jalil tonight. The South Korean coach acknowledged Malaysia's superiority in their previous encounter, which saw Harimau Malaya secure a comfortable 3-0 win in Vientiane, but said his side had learned valuable lessons from that defeat.
But ultimately, Malaysia was a much better team. even though we think what we tried to do, we did the best as we can. And from this match, we've learned a lot of things, a lot of mistakes. So we are more prepared for the match coming tomorrow. And hopefully we can bring a better result for Laos.
He also did not view the issue of naturalized players and the FIFA FAM registration fiasco involving 7 national heritage players as a weakness for the Harimau Malaya squad. Commenting further, he said the use of naturalized players has its own advantages and disadvantages. After 3 matches, Malaysia currently lead Group F with 9 points, followed by Vietnam in second place with 6 points, Laos in third with 3, and Nepal at the bottom without a point. Still within the world of football, Cape Verde beat Eswatini 3-0 on Monday to secure a spot at the 2026 World Cup, booking their place in football's global showpiece for the very first time. The team from an archipelago off the coast of Senegal, with about 550,000 inhabitants, becomes the second least populous nation to reach the World Cup after Iceland, with just over 350,000 at Russia 2018. Cape Verde won Group D with 23 points, 4 more than Cameroon, which hold the African record for World Cup appearances with 8. Cameroon were held 0-0 by Angola in Yaoundé. The remarkable qualification of Cape Verde came after they made a disappointing start to the campaign, drawing 0-0 at home with Angola and slumping to a 4-1 loss to Cameroon. Those results left the Blue Sharks with 4 points from a possible 9, having won away to Eswatini in between. But after that, Cape Verde won 5 consecutive qualifiers, including crucial 1-goal victories away to Angola and at home to Cameroon. That left the Islanders needing 3 points from their final 2 qualifiers this month, and a drama-filled 3-all in Libya secured one before hosting Eswatini. Elsewhere, Nigeria's Super Eagles and Benin's national football team intensified preparations on Monday ahead of their World Cup qualifier, with coaches and captains expressing cautious optimism during press briefings. Benin, who defeated Nigeria during the first leg of qualifiers, aim to replicate their success, and doing so would book them a ticket to a maiden World Cup. Even victory may not be enough for the Super Eagles, as South Africa could also qualify with a positive result of their own at home to Rwanda. Benin's coach, Gernot Roher, and captain Steve Mooney also expressed confidence ahead of the encounter. That concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, Israeli captives, Palestinian prisoners released as world leaders sign Gaza ceasefire deal. Till then, my name is Daryl Baptist, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat di Santuni. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all an exceptionally productive day ahead. Farewell.